I suppose we can start and we'll let others continue to come in as we go. My task this point in time is simple, simply to call the meeting to order and hand over to Madam Kungeka Njobe, who is going to guide us into this first part of the event, the 2.5 hours event that we have together. We're very delighted actually to welcome all of you and hope that we're going to have a productive, active and worthwhile time together these 2.5 hours. So I would call upon Madam Njobe. Please introduce yourself first, and then you can run us through the first session. It's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin, and good morning, delegates and colleagues in this meeting. I see Mr. Dan Tutoy has his hand up. I'm not sure if Dan, you would like to say anything from DSI? Oh, was that a mistake? Okay. All right. Good morning, delegates, and good morning, colleagues. I want to start off by extending greetings and warm regards to our distinguished guests. There are many to name, but let me in particular recognize Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, the CEO of AUDA-NEPAD, Professor Divilius, Director and Vice Chancellor of the Stellenbosch University, Dr. Tulani Dlamini, who happens to be my boss at the CSR, the CEO. We've also got Dr. Tulani Dlamini, who happens to be my boss, the Minister of Higher Education, Science, CEO and Innovation. We've got distinguished guests coming from various missions of the African continent, also present here. There are too many to mention specifically. And I also want to extend a warm welcome to the panelists who will be going through a discourse and engaging on pertinent issues that are in effect the essence of what this Center for Excellence, Science, Technology and Innovation is about. So we're looking forward to those deliberations later on in the day. Mine is to make a few remarks before I invite opening statements from the principals from the three partner institutions. We're here today to launch the AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in Science, Technology and Innovation. And this is based in South Africa, first and foremost. I will introduce you to others as well, because ultimately this is a network that is critical in the development in the African continent. And this center, the genesis of forming this center started actually, of course, with AUDA-NEPAD conceptualizing 5 of such centers in the continent. And to launch the South African Center, it started with initially the CSR and the AUDA-NEPAD entering into a technical cooperation agreement. I remember this day vividly when this was launched, or rather signed and launched, this collaboration. And key and center to that collaboration was actually to get off the ground the Center of Excellence for Science, Technology, and Innovation. And there it started. This also led to both parties agreeing that this center will be based at the CSR campus in our Stellenbosch office. And because of its location, it also made total sense that the the network or the relationship be expanded to include yet another partner in the University of Stellenbosch. I happen to have a bit of a relationship with the university, having been a past counselor in the university. Indeed, it's appropriate and that they are part of this network. As during my time at the university, I know that the university places high regard in being involved in African affairs and advancing education, science, engineering, and technology in the African continent. So this is a start today with these 3 partners launching this center. It's expected to be a center that involves a bigger network of many other actors in science, technology, and innovation in the African continent. So it is indeed a big moment today that we're initiating this, we're launching this center because it marks many, many good things to come. Post-COVID, you would all agree that science, technology, and innovation are key to the development of the continent, are key to accelerate the recovery as a result of negative impact of COVID-19. So with those few words, I just want to welcome all of you to this launch of the Center of Excellence, Science, Technology, and Innovation. And to just briefly to also introduce you to the program today. In session 2, we will be receiving opening statements from the 3 parties, 3 principals from the 3 partnership institutions. And we will also be receiving a statement read by our Mr. Dan Dutoy from Minister Blaise Nzimande in section 2. And then Mr. Martin Baulwa will then give a presentation on AUDA-NEPAD, the Center of Excellence on Science, Technology, and Innovation, and the partnership. And he'll also brief us on where things are, because there's been a lot of work happening leading up to this day. In session 3, there'll be panel discussion on the development of solutions of homegrown innovations in responding to Africa's development challenges, an appropriate topic in light of where we are in our development trajectory in the continent, but also post-COVID. Then we'll have session 4, another panel discussion, which will be looking at experiences with blended public-private collaborations in catalyzing accelerated scaling up commercialization of innovations along the Africa's development priorities. Again, a very relevant topic to give content to the work of the center. And then we'll have closing remarks. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, let me then use this opportunity to then open up session 2 of our program. And I will start by inviting Dr. Thulani Dlamini, the CEO of the CSIR, to deliver his opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kungela.
Thank you.
Dr. Ibrahim Miyaki, CEO of AUDA-NEPAD, Professor Wim Divilius, Rector and Vice Chancellor of Stellenbosch University, and our distinguished guests joining us through various platforms. Good morning to all of you. It is an honor to address you today as we launch the AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation. There is increasing global evidence to support the link between a country's investment in research and development and its social and economic development and prosperity. Science and technology is a sector that most developed nations promote to foster their development. And for Africa to develop, Africans then need to ensure that we invest in science and technology that addresses the problems that Africa is facing. The establishment of this center signifies the beginning of a huge task that we have set for ourselves to unearth innovations on the continent. In fact, not just to unearth innovations, but to make sure that they contribute to alleviating the triple challenge of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Again, Africans solving problems for Africa. When the idea of a Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation was raised at our bilateral, EXCO-to-EXCO bilateral between CSIR and AUDA-NEPAD in July 2020, as my colleague has already indicated, it was an easy decision for the CSR to make, to want to be part of this initiative, as it is indeed in line with our mandate of using science and technology to improve the quality of lives of our people. I'm also glad that we've been joined by Stellenbosch University in this partnership. A partnership that will help to accelerate the development of innovation outputs from Africa's own research, development, and innovation institutions for the purpose of socio-economic transformation in Africa. Today, I am particularly delighted that our collaborative efforts of establishing the Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation, which seeks to accelerate homegrown research, development, and innovation solutions on the continent, is finally materializing. This launch is happening during a very significant year for us as the CSIR, as our organization is celebrating 75 years of touching lives through innovation. It is a proud moment for us as we reflect on the last 7.5 decades of success in research, development, and innovation outputs, which are a result of collaboration with our many partners in the public, in the private sector, locally, as well as internationally. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that for any country to survive, collaboration and innovation must be at the forefront. As the CSIR, we have demonstrated this through various interventions that we have undertaken together with our partners in the public and the private sector to support the national response to COVID-19. This center will connect our knowledge and research hubs with other knowledge and research ecosystems on the continent. Further, it will act as a channel for innovators to access alternative options to reach their new markets when rolling out new technology solutions. Again, this fits in with the CSR mandate of using science and technology to improve the quality of lives of our people. The Center of Excellence will provide a unique platform to source funding and other resources for the upscaling, dissemination, and localization of proven innovations to member states and governments in support of their developmental priorities and the implementation of Agenda 2063. And I'm sure my colleagues will expand later on this particular point. I am pleased that over 40 knowledge-based innovations, which could potentially be packaged for scale-up implementation, have been identified. These innovations come out of long-running programs from Stellenbosch University and the CSIR and represent widely tested and proven technologies or practices that are essentially ready for packaging and scale-up in other regions of the continent. The innovations cover a wide spectrum of solutions for the continent. As the CSIR, we could not be more proud to be part of this initiative, which we are positive will make a huge contribution to science, technology, and innovation, and ultimately, and perhaps more importantly, the betterment of the lives of the people of our continent. I wish all of us a very good engagement over the next 2 hours, and I thank you all for your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dlamini. And thank you very much for also the leadership of the CSIR through your encouragement that this center has come to be, and also today for reinforcing the commitment of the CSIR in ensuring that this is a success. Indeed, given the mandate of the CSIR, I definitely think this CSIR being a key partner and initiator of this initiative, it very much aligns to what the vision you have set for the CSIR is about. Thank you very much. I now move on to invite Professor Wim Divilius, the Rector and Vice Chancellor of the University of Stellenbosch. May I call Wim to take the floor? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kungeka and Dr. Miyake and Dr. Dlamini and colleagues. Today, we celebrate the official launch of the AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation. And for Stellenbosch University, today is especially significant, given our vision to be Africa's leading research-intensive university, where we are globally recognized as excellent, inclusive, and innovative, and where we advance knowledge in service of society. So there are 5 centers of excellence, or COEs, established by AUDA-NEPAD in Africa. There are the COEs for climate resilience in Cairo, rural resources and food systems in Dakar, human capital and institutions in Nairobi, supply chains and logistics must still be allocated. And then there is the COE for science, technology, and innovation in Stellenbosch. And we are extremely proud to be a key player in this exciting and innovative landscape in the search for solutions to the challenges we face. Governments and institutions on our continent are pushing the frontiers of scientific research and technologies. And Stellenbosch University is happy to make such a contribution. The COE in Stellenbosch has been established as a partnership between AUDA-NEPAD, South Africa's Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, or the CSIR, and Stellenbosch University. And it's good to report that during a virtual workshop in December last year, more than 140 researchers from Stellenbosch University, the CSIR, and program officers from AUDA-NEPAD identified, as already stated, more than 40 existing technologies and programs with strong potential to be upscaled for the rest of the African continent. And these represent widely tested and proven technologies or practices which are essentially ready to be taken to the next level. For instance, screening technologies for drug discovery, epidemiological modeling, aquaculture, post-harvest technologies, initiatives around climate change, which connects perfectly with our new School for Climate Studies that we are launching here at Stellenbosch University. And there are also innovations in water, energy, and food security, online learning systems, and electronic payment systems, and much more. So a whole new wave of African scientists, businesses, and governments are leveraging homegrown innovations and technologies to solve problems around access to healthcare, food, education, and finance. And in this way, the continent could capitalize on the opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution and usher in a new period of renewal after the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a chance to translate theoretical research into tangible, positive outcomes. The AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation in Stellenbosch is doing some really exciting work. and we have committed our resources in partnership with AUDA-NEPAD and the CSR to collectively take us forward. And Africa is thus driving its own agenda, converting our enormous potential into actual products and services, making a positive contribution to the lives of people on our continent. I'm very excited to see what the future holds, and I wish the center all the best, and let's go forward together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Divilius. Vem, I used to call you. And it's such a pleasure. It's a small world. Thank you very much for those words of commitment yet again. We never doubted the commitment of the University of Stellenbosch. The passion for the African continent is really palpable, and we're looking forward to this collaboration and as we grow this network. And of course, we like your positioning as the African leading research-intensive university, definitely required in this continent. Thank you very much. I just want to also acknowledge participants who are posting on the chat, and some of them are leaving contact details, and some of them are also just alerting them that, of course, they want to be involved. Just want to acknowledge and to say, indeed, this, the room is bigger for all, is big enough for all of us to get involved and make a difference. Thank you, Vem. I now invite Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, who's the CEO of AUDA-NEPAD, to then address us this morning. Thank you, Dr. Mayaki.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me recognize Dr. Thulani Dlamini, the CEO of CSIR, and Professor Divilius, Rector and Vice Chancellor of Stellenbosch University, and Mr. Dan Dutoit, representing DSI. I am, and all the participants who come together in this very special moment in order to really enhance a turning point, a critical point in the development of our Continental Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD. I'm extremely delighted and feel greatly honored to welcome you today to the launch of the African Union Development Agency, Center of Excellence in Science, Technology, and Innovation. The AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in STI is a partnership, a smart partnership, with South Africa's Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, and Stellenbosch University to upscale and commercialize homegrown solutions and innovations on the continent in response to Africa's development challenges and opportunities. There is a technical consensus that science, technology, and innovation will fuel development, accelerate growth, and tackle issues such as poverty, disease outbreaks, food insecurity, water and sanitation, climate change, as well as improve public service delivery and ultimately improved human and environmental well-being. This technical consensus has become, fortunately, a political consensus. And we know how hard it is nowadays to forge political consensus. So I think we should rejoice of that dimension that the center has taken. In 2013, African leaders endorsed the continent's economic growth and development blueprint, Agenda 2063, which underscores the importance of leveraging science, technology, and innovation The African Union also adopted the Science, Technology and Innovation Strategy for Africa, STISA 2024, in order to place science, technology and innovation at the heart of Africa's socio-economic development and growth. Despite these efforts, progress towards implementing this framework, STISA 2024, and achieving the goals and targets of Agenda 2063 have been slow continentally, according to the 2019 African Innovation Outlook published by AUDA-NEPAD. We have our part of responsibility in this situation, and it gives us more motivation to do better. And we are fully convinced, and this is the message that we are pushing through the African Union, but looking at development through the lens of science can help us think differently and implement differently. To put research, science, technology, and innovation in Africa in perspective, we have currently only 124 researchers per 1 million inhabitants. Egypt and South Africa are leading with 658 and 518 researchers respectively, as compared to more than 4,000 researchers per million in the European Union and the United States of America. Government spending on research and development is directly correlated with research output. However, African countries still spend less than 1% of their national budgets on research and development. And here I would like to commend the government of the Republic of South Africa for leading in this domain within the continent. And one of the key functions of this Center of Excellence will be to take benefit of the ecosystem which has been created in order to spread it within the continent and disseminate the solutions that will be provided by this ecosystem. The COVID crisis has shown that science, technology, and innovation play a vital role in fighting the devastating impact of the pandemic. The continent needs to look inwards to develop, strengthen, and upscale innovations that would help fight the pandemic and build greater resilience in the post-COVID era. So don't get me wrong. When I say we need to look inwards, it means that we need to, at the same time, open in order to build better. Looking inwards means framing our own solutions from inward, not from outward to inward, but from inward to outward. So that movement evidently cannot be efficient and cannot be effective if we don't open ourselves. Our response to build capacity for accelerating the implementation of STISA 2024 is based on the fact that by establishing this center, we are also thinking about connecting it to the other 4 centers that we have within the continent, and these 4 centers were initiated earlier. These 5 centers will be prime African Union instruments for leveraging knowledge and science-based innovations to support the strategy of accelerating the implementation of Agenda 2063. So through the Center of Excellence, so STI partnership with CSIR and Stellenbosch University, we are really proud to act as the lever connecting innovations, public policy, and public and private sector practice in rolling out at scale homegrown solutions. The AUDA-NEPAD Centers of Excellence will bring innovative and agile solutions to scale and across sectors, critical solutions in order to sustain that economic growth that we are all looking at. I like to say that by designing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, our objective is not to trade maize between ourselves. Our objective is to be at levels of processes, products, services that will position Africa differently on the global scene. So we are proud to note that over 40 homegrown innovations have already been identified. These are innovations coming out of long-running programs in Stellenbosch University and CSIR, and represent widely tested and proven technologies or practices ready for upscaling and or commercialization across the continent. The innovations cover a wide spectrum of solutions in areas such as health, renewable energy, agriculture, water, sanitation, to support countries in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic and well beyond. As the first African Union Development Agency for this continent, with a continental mandate and reach, AUDA-NEPAD brings to all partners, stakeholders, and players an instrument that is able to galvanize integrated and comprehensive solutions across varied interest groups. I here wish to invite all these keen and interested to engage with us, and I'm confident that in the alliances and partnerships, we shall deliver greater, faster, and wider. It is my strong belief that Africa has the means and tools to collectively fight the pandemic in which we are and draw lessons from the crisis to upscale and commercialize homegrown innovations to build more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable economies post-COVID-19. We remain, and I remain, committed to providing the necessary support in these unprecedented times to attain the goals and targets of Agenda 2063. The investments we make in science, technology, and innovation today will pay dividends into the future and across all sectors. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miyaki. Once again, we really are grateful that through your leadership and through AUDA-NEPAD, the positioning of science, technology, and innovation is firmly placed in the pathway for development and in the political agenda of the African continent. We also are grateful that through your leadership and the partners that are holding hands in initiating the launch of this center, you have put emphasis on being practical and focusing on implementation. And hence today you are able to talk about homegrown innovations that are ready for commercialization and scaling up in various parts of the continent and in various sectors. We really thank you for those words. I now move us on and invite Mr. Dan du Toit, who will be representing Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. Mr. Dan du Toit. Dan? Your mic is on. can't seem to see whether
Can you hear me now, Kungeka?
we can hear you. Thank you very much. You've got the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, eminent guests and friends. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Ibrahim Mayeki, CEO of AUDA-NEPAD and one of Africa's foremost leaders for intra-Africa cooperation and partnership. Of course, Professor Divilius, Rector of the Stellenbosch University, and Dr. Thulani Dlamini, CEO of the CSIR, who's Africa's leading research organization for industrial-oriented research and a proud member of the Department of Science and Innovation's family of institutions. Dear colleagues, my first message today is to bring you the good wishes and also the apologies of South Africa's Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, His Excellency Dr. Blade Nzimande. As I'm sure you're all aware, because we are all confronted with those challenges in our daily lives, these are challenging times for governments all across the world with many, many pressing priorities and decisions which have to be taken as we seek to best respond to the challenges posed by COVID-19. And unfortunately, there's important urgent government business today which prohibits the minister of joining this very important event. But he had asked me to represent him and in the first instance bring to you all his wishes of congratulations on this important milestone, a milestone for NEPAD AUDA and its AUDA-NEPAD in its ongoing efforts to champion science, technology and innovation in Africa, but also for our South African institutions, CSIR and Stellenbosch University, of which we are very proud. But not only congratulating, it's also to pledge and commit the support of the Department of Science and Innovation for this very important initiative. But of course, with a pledge and a commitment of support, there's also a price to pay. So the minister has also asked me to challenge you and to challenge the Center of Excellence. And we would like to do that within the context of South Africa's new decadal plan for science, technology and innovation, which Minister Nzimande is actually currently leading the finalization of through consultation within the broader South African, not only public, but also private sector. Very important to emphasize, this will be a decadal plan, not only for the Department of Science and Innovation, but for all of South Africa. And the focus of the Center of Excellence is perfectly aligned with three key priority areas of that decadal plan. First of all, the focus on Pan-African cooperation and the African science response to societal challenges. Secondly, the key focus on the importance of partnerships. And then thirdly, the role of science, technology and innovation to respond to our key societal challenges. Now, the Department of Science and Innovation and our predecessor, the Department of Science and Technology, and I should really say the South African government, has a long and proud association with NEPAD and now with AUDA-NEPAD in supporting science and innovation in Africa. It's more than 15 years ago that we provided support for the first NEPAD Science Technology Office, and we continue to fund and support initiatives such as the African Laser Center hosted at the CSIR, the Southern African Network for Biosciences, also hosted at the CSIR, or the Network for Centers of Excellence in Water Science and Technology, SANWACHE, at Stellenbosch University, and numerous other Pan-African science and innovation initiatives. So we're very pleased to see how this consistent support over many years have now matured and culminated in the establishment of the Center of Excellence. It is an explicit policy priority of not only our department, but also the South African government to invest in and support the development of Pan-African science, technology and innovation capabilities. Many of you on this call would have perhaps seen yesterday the very strategic announcement by South Africa's President, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, and the Director General of the World Health Organization, that South Africa will host the first global hub for the transfer of the pioneering mRNA technology for vaccine development. And it, even right from the outset of the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, our efforts have been geared towards always seeking to build Pan-African capabilities and Pan-African capacities. And that is indeed our first challenge, which we would like to pose to the Center of Excellence, to really ensure that you become a vehicle, that you become an enabler for deepened and enhanced Pan-African cooperation and Pan-African integration, leveraging the opportunities Dr. Mayaki spoke about, such as those presented by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So please do not be isolated there in Stellenbosch or here in our city of capital city of Tshwane, but be a vehicle for true Pan-African cooperation. So that's the first challenge. The second area where there's alignment, as I've said, is about partnerships. We know very well at the Department of Science and Innovation that our ambitions for the decadal plan will only be successful if there's true partnership. So it really warms our hearts when we see close collaboration between a public-funded science council, such as the CSIR, and one of our universities, Stellenbosch. We want to see much more of that, but we want to see broader collaboration with industry, collaboration with civil society as co-creators, really embracing all the principles and values of open innovation and open science. And let me also here emphatically call that these partnerships should also be a vehicle for being truly inclusive, including those who are often excluded from this type of collaboration, including our grassroots innovators in rural communities, crucially important, addressing the gender imbalances in science, technology, and innovation, advancing, for example, the women in science agenda. And then, as I've said, making sure that these partnerships go across our borders and become truly Pan-African. So that is our second challenge, and is to ensure that building on the very solid foundation of the AUDA-NEPAD CSIR Stellenbosch partnership, you seek to enhance and broaden these knowledge generation partnerships to become truly inclusive. And then just thirdly, later today, we will hear other presentations on the many exciting societal priority areas where technologies and innovations have already been identified to respond to. We know what our societal challenges are: the triple challenge of unemployment, inequality, and poverty, the public health challenges posed by COVID-19, the need to modernize our African economies, identify new opportunities for growth, very crucially, always the ongoing challenges posed by climate change, and ensuring that we are more responsible stewards of the natural resources we are endowed with, responding to the opportunities and challenges associated with demographic change. We are convinced all of these challenges will be at the heart of the work of the Center of Excellence. But very crucially, our challenge to you is to ensure that we make a decisive difference in changing the inequalities and imbalances which exist in knowledge production and knowledge application. As Professor Divilius and Dr. Blumini spoke, let us really seek to advance the African agenda for science, an agenda which is owned by Africa and respond to African priorities. So with those challenges, Program Director, which we are confident the Center of Excellence will live up to and respond to, please again accept on behalf of Minister Nzimande to Dr. Mayaki for our appreciation for his leadership, including to Dr. Lamini and Professor Divilius. We often speak these days about science diplomacy, but what we have launched today here, we think is an excellent example of science diplomacy put into practice, because you have used diplomacy, you have used international relations to enable a critical new partnership, and it's a partnership which responds to the key challenges which are confronted by nations, not only on our continent, but indeed across the world. But then I think very crucially, at the heart of it is the values of solidarity, of multilateralism, and that crucial African cornerstone of which we are all committed to, and that is Ubuntu. So we wish you very well. On behalf of the Minister, again, our best wishes, and I look forward to the rest of the discussions and informing Minister Nzimande of the progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dutoy. Also, please send our greetings and gratitude to the Minister for this message. You have said much, you have challenged us, you have reinforced the agenda of this initiative, the Center of Excellence in STI, as part of the decadal plan, which obviously is receiving the highest attention and support in our government. You have reinforced the message around science diplomacy. You have recommitted to an agenda which I think you've long been championing, supporting initiatives across the continent. We are grateful, and we're looking forward again to working with you in ensuring that indeed this Center of Excellence is able to deliver well beyond even our imagination currently. So thank you very much and greetings to the Minister. I now would like to hand over to Mr. Martin Bailwa, who is the Acting Director, Knowledge Management Program and Evaluation at AUDA-NEPAD, and he will be giving a technical presentation on the AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence, Science and Technology and Innovation, and the partnerships. Many of the speakers before us have already alluded to some elements of it. Now, to exactly what this Martin, you've got the floor.
Thank you so much. Indeed, good morning to everybody. I hope you can see the slide. I'm going to use a few slides to make this presentation. But before I start, and to connect to, first to acknowledge our principals that have spoken so far. That's Dr. Dlamini, Professor Divilius, Dr. Mayaki, and indeed the message from the Minister. Thank you so much, Mr. Detloyd. And I want to connect to that simply by picking up one issue that has resonated through that, and also connect actually to what Dr. Mayaki always says, that the P in the partner in NEPAD, when you say NEPAD as Africa's development vision, the P implying partnership was not just by an accident. It was actually very well rationalized. It was an important part of that vision, and it's just as well true today and relevant today as it was when the whole NEPAD vision was conceptualized and endorsed by the African Union. And therefore, this issue of partnership is very cardinal in terms of what we are living today in this collaboration between the African Union Development Agency, CSR, and Stellenbosch University. And I want to say then that the African Union Development Agency, for what it is, as an African Union institution, it means that all of us in this meeting and many others are actually part of it. You can easily replace African Union Development Agency with your organization there. And therefore, you are not a standby partner listening in. We want to invite you to be very much part of this collaboration. And is in terms of how we deliver, how we move forward in those partnerships, alliances, and networks that we are all in it together. And this we want to reflect through and through when we go through this session, but even more so when we get down to working and implementation of the programs in the Center of Excellency. So my presentation is going to deal with characterization of the partnership and the center, and also providing avenues and areas where we can actually walk the talk together in terms of partnerships, in terms of alliances, but ultimately making a difference, as actually alluded to all the speakers that have spoken before me, making a difference in the lives of our people on the continent, as well as in the capability of the continent to champion its own economic growth and development. I want to shift the slides now. Hopefully they are changing. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with the background and I'll go a little bit fast in the interest of time. So the first thing is to acknowledge that our context, as actually I just said, our scope and context is actually Africa's development priorities. And this is outlined by the member states themselves through Agenda 2063 and actioned in the 10-year implementation plan. So when we look at that and you actually understand that, this is where we actually are beginning from in terms of reflecting what are the needs on the ground, what are the needs in the member states, what are the needs at all levels in terms of championing the continent's development agenda. So we actually are assessing ourselves towards the 20 goals of Agenda 2033, the 7 aspirations, and actually reflected in these 4 points we see here. Anything we do has to be clear in terms of wealth creation. And if you are saying that in terms, speaking to somebody just on the streets, it is somewhere where you're reflecting how does it connect with job creation, with incomes, with well-being, which is the other point there, human well-being, livelihood, standards of living. We should also ensure that whatever we're doing is actually connecting to building the capability of the continent to deliver its own development agenda. And this has been alluded to also in the various statements area, as well as being mindful of the fact that we need to manage sustainably our natural resource base as the basis on which we build development. So looking at it from the fact of how does it fit and resonate with climate and environmental resilience is also not an afterthought, but an important element we take from the very beginning. So from there, we have recognized, and the African Union Development Agency, as has been said, looks at how to get into that space and deliver tangible results through very organized, intentional partnerships and alliances across those priorities. And this is what you see in these slides in terms of the multilaterality horizontally across the various interest groups, but also vertically across national, subnational, regional, and continental interests. And that we are actually making a point that is not a by the way, is not a nice thing to do, is actually an important condition for success. And this we know, we have seen, and is something that is experienced at all levels. We also then come up and still speaking within the context of Agenda 2033, that in fact, this slide was taken just before COVID, but you can recognize that within Agenda 2033, member states are actually indicating priorities that they are dealing with in this moment. And you can see that already, this is the 2019, that health concerns are coming up very, very prominently, of course, connected with industrialization. And this is saying that as we move to support member states and accompany them in their development agendas, to recognize where is it they're putting their energy, their resources, their efforts in terms of catalyzing demand-driven, bottom-up development processes and agenda is cardinal. And we do this exercise very regularly so that we are in tune with what the member states are actually looking for and spending their energy on in terms of Agenda 2033 implementation. We also recognize, and this point I've just made, that as an African Union Development Agency supporting implementation of development programs, we actually have got a very unique feature that relates to, that is the only African Union organization that is mandated to operate at all 3 levels, including global level. But the African Union Development Agency is operating at continental level, regional level with our regional economic communities, and the national level with governments as entry point. But even more important is that the African Union Development Agency is also connecting, and in fact, this is a very valuable responsibility to ensure the connection, the linkages between these 3 levels. So that when you look at continental efforts, it's important to say, how does it matter to the region? How does it matter to national action? And this is an important part of our delivery, of the agency's delivery model in making happen, not just implementation, but delivery of sustainable solutions to the continent's development agenda. And within the context of the structure of the organization, and this is recent in terms of the reforms of the African Union Development Agency, the member states at the heads of state level went further to walk the talk in terms of putting a premium on knowledge, putting a premium on science, technology, and innovation, and actually build into the structure. It was not just a pronouncement that is important, but build in the structure of the agency a structure that allows for establishment of the 5 centers of excellency that has been referred to. And these are being set up, operating already in most cases across the region. And they are about leveraging capability in the continent and connecting that to policy, connecting that to practices within the fields that you see in this slide, from science, technology, and innovation. And actually, let me use this slide because it's actually also underlining that they don't sit isolated. They are very interconnected. They are part of an integrated, comprehensive architecture for enhanced delivery of the continent's development agenda. We have science, technology, and innovation at the center, and this is not by accident, connecting with the rural resources and the food systems, human capital and institutions, energy, climate change, and also the industrialization, trade and markets in supply and logistics. So these are centers that are actually a critical instrument of the African Union Development Agency to deliver relevant, appropriate support to accelerated implementation of Agenda 2023 at all levels, national, regional, and continental level. Now I come specifically, that is the housing of the partnership that we're talking about. Now coming to the partnership itself in terms of where we have reached as a collaboration between African Union Development Agency, CSR, and Stellenbosch University, as alluded to in the earlier presentation, is that we are here establishing something we see as unique. It may look very obvious, but this is something that maybe we talk about all the time, but here is where we are actually making it happen as a very unique partnership. And of course, is a mechanism that we believe has been said that should grow outside just the 3 organizations in terms of leveraging blended, multi-sectorial, integrated action and responses to support member states in implementation of development agenda. So it's about bringing together research and development, policy practice, and execution capabilities to augment superior economic performance in our countries at all levels. Support to accelerated implementation of Agenda 2023, and here I want to underline that we see Agenda 2023 within the national development plans as domesticated there, and bring, of course, Africa's development terrain into the African development terrain, world-class technological and management innovations. A lot of it is actually emanating from homegrown efforts. And this is about identifying innovation solutions to specific, and this is the element about problem-driven, problem-solving driven, demand-driven, and actually enhancing not just the top-down, but also the bottom-up approaches in responding to development agenda. And ultimately, and this is where the unique part of it is, of the partnership, is that these innovations, many of them that are actually being generated and sometimes remaining in the shelves of the laboratory, actually go out in terms of commercialization and scaling up across the continent. And this slide I will not elaborate, but is actually that the partnership is also not an accident, is actually been nuanced to identify the comparative values that come together in delivering the accelerated, enhanced, and relevant support to the implementation of economic and development programs in national and development agendas. So CSR is presenting the research and development constituencies and brings very specific capabilities, AUDA as well as Stellenbosch University combining in that sense. And here we are, this slide is also meant to see how you can identify yourselves in terms of being part to the partnerships and therefore enhance our collective capability to deliver more and better. And this is just the process we've run through, which I'll come back to later, and also presented in this slide, that we have actually moved quite supersonic speed in the last not more than 10 months in coming up to where we are, where, as has been said, over 40 innovations have been identified, within this constituency now, and we have developed also mechanisms that can allow us to identify these innovations from across the continent. And we are at the stage here where a number of them have actually been categorized, defined, and ready to go for scaling up commercialization efforts. And I'll show that in these slides in terms of that the partnership has already generated a very concise, specific business plan. And this is more than just a standard business plan, because it's also a framework to scale up this kind of partnership and allow actually the continent to come up to the level as all other continents and countries in terms of accelerated harnessing of development and technologies and innovations, both technologically and in management-wise. We've also developed, as I was saying, initial catalog of innovations ready for scaling up. These are also not just innovations standard, but they are actually picked up specifically that they reflect the leveraging of local African capability in science, technology, and innovation. They are also focusing and responding to both technological and management solutions. And they are a direct response to very specific development challenges in the continent. So the issue of homegrown solutions is actually very, very heavily built into these innovations. And lastly is that we've set up within is actually we have the center set up within a globally renowned research and development ecosystem, as has been said, in the Stellenbosch ecosystem. This is a huge ecosystem that is looking at and connecting both training, research, startup capabilities, and connecting to industry, as it were. And this is also the center in terms of the architecture that can actually expand into the rest of the continent in terms of reach and involvement of our other constituencies, partners, and players across the continent. There has been a reference to the over 40 innovations. We have actually categorized them also in terms of the mechanism around which we will continue to invite and take up innovations from all over the continent, that they are categorized into 4 groups, and this is related directly to the 4 categories of Agenda 2033, and they relate to very specific development challenges. As you would see there in category 1, looking at agro-industry, looking at industrial products and tools. We have standards of living issues from clean water or clean natural resource support, healthcare, energy, and they're coming up in that form. And we have also, as you see in the second column there, actually the number of innovations involved and the specific examples that in the last column that we have identified. And this is a catalog that is going to be shared widely, including the framework, so that in your own organizations, we can also engage not just on scaling up these innovations, but identifying and taking on board innovations you may have in your various countries and across the continent. And this is a working in progress mechanism that we hope can enhance the connection between policy, science, and practice, and therefore able as a continent to deliver more and better and faster, and indeed enhance the value of the Center of Excellency in Africa's development agenda. I thank you. Back to you, Kungeka.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you very much for that informative introduction of the work of the center, what has been done, and contextualizing as well to the development agenda of the African continent and the priorities of member states. I remember very well that December workshop, and it really did focus us to identify these solutions and innovations to position them and to link them to what the member states have identified as priorities. And thanks for sharing that. I should say that these presentations and speeches will be made available to all attendees. In good time, I think many of the participants here who are already sharing actively on the chat, it will be good to engage, particularly with finding yourselves in the program that is being outlined and being developed of the center. So thank you very much, Martin, again, very informative, and looking forward from the CSR side to continue to take this to the next level. We now move on to session number 3, which is going to be facilitated, moderated by Dr. Nico Elema, and he will introduce the title of the session. Nico, may I invite you to then also introduce your panel? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and also all the participants to the event. And I should also just say all protocol observed. I do acknowledge that there are many participants from all over the continent, and it's wonderful to lead this session. As introduced, my name is Nico Elema. I manage the Center for Collaboration in Africa at Stellenbosch University, and part of the operationalization team of the AUDA-NEPAD Center for STI. So I've been part of this process since about November, October last year, and it's been wonderful to see how it developed and also where we are at the moment. I just would like to acknowledge the contributions earlier, the statements by Dr. Dlamini, Prof. Divilius, Dr. Miyaki, because it really provides context for what we are aiming to achieve and also the support, and also the message from the Minister delivered by Mr. Toy, and specifically the challenges. I took very good note of them, and it will be wonderful in a year's time if we are able to report back and see how we have done, in terms of the challenges as well. And then also the presentation by Mr. Balwa, providing the context and then leading us into this session. We started the operationalization of the center in the latter part of 2020. And as indicated by Mr. Balwa, the starting point was really member state needs, thus demand-driven. And from there, we initiated the process for homegrown solutions and really identifying these initial 44 solutions. So in our panel that we have today, we are discussing this topic, homegrown innovations in responding to Africa's development challenges. And we have a wonderful panel lined up for the session. And also it speaks to the diversity, as indicated earlier, not just in terms of institutions as well, who we really see, how we can roll up and upscale these innovations. So first of all, we've got Professor Eugene Kluter, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, Innovation and Postgraduate Studies at Stellenbosch University. After him, we've got Ms. Mampei Chaba, who is the Chief Director of Multinational Cooperation for Africa from the Department of Science and Technology, or Innovation as it's known these days. And then we're also excited to have Mr. Fari Seye, who's the General Secretary of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation from Senegal. And he's dialing in from Dakar. And also Dr. Seth Montejo, who is the Director at the Ghana Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR in Ghana. And he's specifically at the Institute for Scientific and Technological Information. So we have more or less 40 minutes. I think there's a slight time overrun. So we have the speakers, 4 of them lined up. May I just ask the speakers if we can stick to the 7 minutes? We can also take questions and comments after the presentations, and I would really encourage participants, if you look at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you will find the tab for the questions and comments. And we can take those questions afterwards because there's another session, another panel after this. So if I can introduce Prof. Eugene Klutter, as indicated, he's the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, Innovation and Postgraduate Studies at Stellenbosch University and really key to the implementation of this program. Prof. Klutter, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ilema, and good morning, colleagues and all the delegates attending this exciting event. I also acknowledge all our honored guests and all protocol observed. I'm very much aware of the time limitation of 7 minutes. So what I want to do in the next 7 minutes is to, at a high level, summarize how I see the challenges that we face on the African continent. And we work as universities, of course, and also the CSIR and the DSI to create knowledge and create a wealth of knowledge, in fact. The idea with the center is to share that wealth of knowledge to uplift the African continent and to make life better for people that live on this continent. I use the word wealth deliberately because I use it as an acronym because, first of all, it makes it easy for me, at least, to remember what the challenges are that we face on the African continent, but they are also, at the same time, very much aligned with the decadal plan of the one that has just been developed and being discussed at the moment. I had the opportunity to go through that. It's also very well aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and a good summary. So if we focus for the next few minutes and consider wealth as the acronym, it will help us all to realize how important it is for us to work on these challenges. So let me go. The W in wealth is for water. 300 million people on the African continent do not have access to safe water on a daily basis, and it remains one of the big challenges that we face. And I can't explain in every one of these categories that I will mention the challenges. Many of them are obvious to us. So the W for water, the E for energy and renewable energy specifically, the A for agriculture, because with agriculture we ensure also food security, the L for land and how do we optimally use land on the continent, the T for technology, including specifically also, of course, information technology and the rollout of information technology systems across the continent, and the H for health. Now, if you think about it very carefully, if you take any one of these 6 elements away, you are poor. You are either water poor, energy poor, health poor, land poor, and so on. So these are the scientific issues and challenges that we face on the continent. And this center is very well aligned, as you would have noted from Martin's presentation, with these particular challenges. But then we go one step further, where I expand on this acronym, this wealth acronym, where the W is also for how do we empower specifically women on the continent? How do we empower them in science, in agriculture, and all of these particular fields? They play a very important role already on the continent. The E, as I've mentioned, is for energy, renewable energy, but also for the environment, the resilient environment, climate studies, climate change, but also for education, which is what we do at universities, for growing the economy, for employment, and for equity. Lots of E's, all of them equally important. The A is for agriculture, but also for access. How do we access? How do we provide access to water, access to the economy, access to employment, access to health? Very, very important to focus on access to all of these other very important topics. Then we go on to land, to L, which is for land, but also for leadership. How do we grow leadership? Young people on the African continent through different programs. And particularly, the focus should be on thought leadership. And how do we build that? The T for technology, but also for transformation. And when I talk about transformation here, I talk about it in the broadest sense of the word. How do we transform the way that we work? How do we transform our economies? How do we transform our livelihoods? How do we transform education? How do we challenge virtually everything that we do to come up with more sustainable solutions as we go into the future? The H, as I mentioned, is for health, but also for housing. How do we provide in Africa for the housing needs? Massive urbanization is taking place as we speak. We have to provide infrastructure in these cities, where 75% of the African continent will actually live in cities within the next 20 years. And the challenge there to provide infrastructure is, of course, major. And then lastly, how do we provide hope to the young people and to other people that live in Africa? And I really think that this Center of Excellence is one such initiative which has a proper vision, it has a plan, and the plan is being actioned in order to bring hope to this continent and to make it a better place. So with those few words, I'm looking forward to the session and listening to my co-panelists, and then I will be happy to take some questions at the end. Thank you very much, Dr. Elema.
Thank you very much, Prof. Klute, and perfectly on time. I don't want to elaborate that because I know that one can talk so much about this wealth acronym. I know I've also heard you mention a wealth index for the continent. So it can be very exciting to actually look at indicators and link that to Agenda 2063 and the SDGs eventually, and see how one can develop such indicators. So thank you. I think there will be questions and comments around it. Again, I encourage participants to post comments and questions in the Q&A at the bottom, and we can definitely try and see how we can capture that at the end of the session. If I can introduce the next panel member, Ms. Mampai Chaba, colleague, friend, somebody that I've been working with on a personal level, for the last 8 or 9 odd years within the AUDA-NEPAD Center for Water Centers of Excellence, as mentioned previously. And it's wonderful, Ms. Chaba, to have you online. She's the Chief Director for Multilateral Cooperation and Africa Department at the Department of Science and Innovation. And Ms. Chaba, I really look forward to your presentation. Are you online?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Elema, and thank you for the organizers for inviting the DSI to make this intervention in the panel this morning. So I'll try to be brief to keep to the 7-minute time limit. And I'd like to really start by emphasizing that the realization that STI can provide an answer to Africa's challenges was made as early as around 1963 by Ghana's first Prime Minister and President Kwame Nkrumah in his speech at the foundation of the Summit of the Organization of African Unity. Agenda 2030, which was unanimously adopted at the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in 2015, also positions STI as a key means of implementation for sustainable development, and as a result, developed and launched the UN Tech Facilitation Mechanism to respond to sustainable development challenges using science, technology, and innovation. Africa is home to a large proportion of global challenges, as indicated by earlier presenters, and it is one of the regions in the world that desperately needs interventions and innovative solutions to address its challenges. According to the WIPO 2020 Global Innovation Index, which assessed the innovation input and innovation output indices of 131 countries and compared these through a set of 80 innovation indicators, ranked Africa or African countries among the lowest, with Tanzania at number 88 of the 131 countries and Rwanda at number 91. So Africa is not doing that well in being innovative. So why is Africa's innovation capacity ranked so low? What could be some of the challenges that this makes this so difficult for Africa to become innovative? Xavier Serera and William Manoli indicated that the innovation paradox can be resolved through 3 main key determinants of innovation performance. 1, innovation investments that can realize high potential returns. capability to understand innovation, commercialize and take these innovations to market, and government's capabilities for implementing effective innovation policies are the three determinants that can resolve this innovation paradox. I also believe that this should be the key areas of focus of the Center of Excellence and its partners to resolve the innovation paradox that we face in Africa and to fully support homegrown innovations. We need to profile homegrown innovations that address Africa's challenges for the world to see. It does not make sense that we hide away and not profile these innovations. And one such platform is the DSI's Innovation Bridge portal that is hosted by the CSIR, and it showcases innovations from Africa that can address the Sustainable Development Goals. The portal provides an opportunity to match innovators and funders, and currently lists about 8 funding opportunities by the private sector, which include the Milken Motsepe Innovation Prize in Agri-Technology, a multi-year initiative to focus to support global innovators and entrepreneurs on developing technological solutions that accelerate progress towards sustainable development goals, with a spotlight on the African continent. It has a cash prize of $1 million and an additional $1 million in support services. The portal also provides an opportunity for innovators to access support services such as business development support and technical support for innovations to move from one technology readiness level to the next. Most importantly, the portal also provides an opportunity for African countries to have a page on the portal where national innovations can be showcased. We are soon going to launch, in partnership with the World Bank, the Southern Africa Corporate Innovation Challenge, which will have no less than 12 top corporates participating in the challenge, looking to support innovators in a few countries in the region. And all this information is also listed on the Innovation Bridge portal. We also really, as indicated by Professor Claude, the need to support women entrepreneurs in Africa. And the DSI, together with the AUC, the African Union Commission, we hope to announce the new category of the African Kwame Nkrumah Award for Scientific Excellence, which focuses on supporting young women techpreneurs. This instrument can recognize innovations, but it still requires investments by both the public and the private sector to support brilliant homegrown innovations to be commercialized and to be absorbed to support services in the continent. We have partnered with a number of private partners, including the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and UN Women, in supporting this new category of young women techpreneurs. Now, the reason I'm raising this is to ensure that we don't duplicate. There are already a number of initiatives, both within the CSIR, within the DSI, within the African Union, and other partners that are aligned to the objectives of the COE. And these need to be harnessed to ensure that we do not duplicate, but support and supplement each other in achieving these objectives. In the jointly developed business plan by this partnership, 40 homegrown innovations from within the continent have been identified and are ready for widespread commercialization and scaling up as solutions to development challenges and opportunities in different countries across the continent. Public-private partnerships will be required to scale up this support and to support the commercialization of these innovations. And it is our hope as the DSI that once the success of these 40 homegrown innovations has been demonstrated, that other innovations from elsewhere in the continent, from other African research institutions, from grassroots innovators in the continent will be supported through the COE, Stellenbosch University, and the CSIR, and that this partnership can become a model for partnerships elsewhere to be used to support innovations in the continent. So I'll pause here for now in the interest of time, but thank you very much for inviting me. Looking forward to your questions. Thanks, Nico.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chaba. And I really appreciate your comments, as always, very clear and succinct, and highlighting for us the challenges in terms of innovation. You spoke about the innovation paradox, and I've read the article, and I think it's something that we should really take to heart and see how one can scale the innovation investment, as an enabler for science and technology. Also, the technology transfer to take these innovations to market. And of course, the government role, and I think within the AUDA-NEPAD Center for STI, it's clear, with the African Union Development Agency and the role that they play. Also, you highlighting homegrown innovations and the Innovation Bridge portal that is hosted at the CSIR, and definitely something that one need to tap in. And then wonderful to also highlight that, and also the role of women and supporting women in science technology. I think it's incredibly important and something that we always strive towards. And then obviously, as you mentioned, not to duplicate. It's important that we link into existing innovations and existing platforms and initiatives. So wonderful also to hear that. As we move along, I'm just watching the time. I think we're doing still very well. In the session, we still have 2 presenters. And again, I encourage people, I've seen a few comments coming through on the Q&A. So if we have a moment at the end, we will gladly take those questions. But our third speaker in this panel is Mr. Csir. He's the Secretary or the General Secretary of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation in Senegal. And it's wonderful to have you on board, Mr. Csir. I understand you might be dialing in from Dakar, and the floor is yours. I just want to confirm that you're online.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Perfect, and we can hear you clearly as well. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Professor Salif Gaye, Director of Innovation, Valorization, Intellectual Property, and Transfer Technology of the Minister of Higher Education, Research and Innovation of Senegal. It's an honor for me to represent Mr. Farisey, Secretary General of MESRI, at this important launching ceremony of AUDA-NEPAD, donc Center of Excellence in Science Technology. The relevance of this center has been proved. And the period of the COVID-19 pandemic that we are going through has shown the multidisciplinarity contribution of the STI in the search of solution. We reaffirm Senegalese commitment of the smooth running of this excellent center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Fari, Csir. And also thank you for the correction there in our program, and that you are representing the General Secretary of the Ministry of Higher Education. And it's wonderful to hear the message of commitment from Senegal. I know from a university and a research perspective, there are quite a number of universities. We collaborate with the University of Sheikh Anta Diop in Dakar, and there are other universities also within the region that we gladly cooperate with, and I really look forward that we can work together. I also acknowledge and thank you. You presented your message in English, and I know it's not your mother tongue, so the colleagues are welcome to also use the translation services. We have interpreters online, and that can translate it. And if people want to tune into specific channels, at the bottom of the screen, there is a specific button for French translation, and you are welcome to connect to that. And I also want to acknowledge the translators in the work that they're doing there. So, Prof, thank you very much for those commitment, and I definitely look forward, as we start rolling out in the center, that we connect with yourselves and similar institutions and the ministries of higher education and science and technology within the West African region, as we focus on different aspects. So thank you very much for that comment, and thank you for joining us today. Our last speaker in this panel is Dr. Seth Montejo, who is from the Ghana CSIR, and specifically the Institute for Scientific and Technological Information, INSTI, at the Ghana CSIR. And Dr. Montejo, I would like to hand the floor over to you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, moderator. Good morning to everyone. And let me first say a big congratulations to the organizers of this initiative. This, for me, is a great initiative, a great milestone, and I mean, you need to be commended. Now, listening to all the various presentations, I'm really convinced that Africa indeed has the R&D capabilities to be able to address the challenges that confront the continent. But somehow what I'm not too sure about is whether, and I'm talking in collective terms, whether Africa has the right ecosystem to be able to effectively mainstream science, technology, and innovation in all the various sectors of the economy to be able to deliver the kind of development that we desire. I have always remained firm, and very steadfast in my belief that our ability to effectively mainstream science, technology, and innovation in our in the various sectors of our economy is a function of our ability to forge the needed linkages that will allow us to create that robust innovation system that will deliver the kind of results that we want. And indeed, coming from an African R&D institutions, I want to share, of course, this platform is also a platform for sharing experiences. I want to share with you how Ghana has been able to use partnership, collaboration, and cooperation as a vehicle to promote innovative activities within the agricultural sector. And let me say, CSR Ghana was established some 60 years ago to conduct research and develop technologies that will promote innovative activities in our various sectors. CSR believe in that philosophy that we can use science, technology, and innovation as a vehicle to promote wealth, to create wealth, to reduce poverty. So once upon a time in the 90s, CSR Ghana was confronted with one big challenge. And the challenge is, how do we make research, and here agricultural research, more responsive to the needs and demands of our farmers and other value chain actors? What can we do to ensure that farmers and other value chain actors derive the most benefit from the research that we do? So in finding answers to this question, we went into a partnership, a collaboration with Ghana's Ministry of Food and Agriculture, bringing on board some private sector actors to institutionalize what we call the RELC model of research and development of homegrown solution in the agricultural sector. In fact, the RELC is an acronym that stands for Research Extension Farmer Linkage Committees. And it's a kind of platform that brings on board all the important people who matter as far as the development of agriculture is concerned. So these committees, these research extension farmer linkage committees were established in all the 10, now we have 16 administrative regions. They were established, and the REC was used as a tool to identify agricultural problems and find homegrown solutions to these problems. So what we do is that every year we conduct a planning session and in all the 16 administrative regions. And at that platform, we identify problems that confront, and it starts, we adopt a bottom-up approach. It starts from the zonal level, moves into the district and municipal level, and ends at the regional level. At the regional level, all the problems that has emanated from the bottom are prioritized and categorized. So those problems which require research attention is handed over to research. So we have what we call a competitive agricultural research grant scheme, where we commission scientists, agricultural scientists to look into the agricultural problems, researchable problems that has emanated from the bottom. So the following year, scientists will come up with technologies, homegrown technologies to address these challenges. Now, the important thing we should know is that this arrangement, this work arrangement, has largely made research more responsive and more demand-driven. And it has given voice. It has allowed the people who matter, the farmers, the processors, those who matter, to set the agenda for our research. And it is also instructive to note the inclusive nature of this arrangement. In fact, we bring on board everybody who matter, the civil society organization, the farmers, the processors, the agri, everybody who matter comes on this board. And through that, we're able to identify problems and resolve them. This for me is a very good example of how investment in partnership can pay off in addressing the issues that confront our continent. And I'm of the view that, of course, I believe that we need to invest hugely in building partnership. And I'm excited about the partnership between CSR South Africa, University of Stellenbosch, and the AU Development Agency, NEPAD. For me, this is a very important way forward, and we must support such arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Montejo, and a wonderful contribution. I've visited the CSIR in Accra, Ghana. I also once visited your aquaculture facility close to the Akasombo Dam. And it's always wonderful to engage and see the wonderful the work that you do there. And also thank you for sharing the partnership and the way that you within agricultural research with the communities and can share, because it's definitely something that we can learn from, because that's always the objective, that we can see what communities of practice or what methods work in other regions on the continent, and also to be more responsive and set the agenda for research. It's a comment that I took from your presentation, and also this importance of having annual regular meetings. That is really important, so that one can have this bottom-up approach, and also to prioritize and categorize the needs, and especially if it's on a regular basis. I agree that one can then feed it into the system. Because something that you mentioned right in the beginning of your presentation is the need for an Africa science ecosystem and the robustness in there. And that is always important. So thank you very much for those contributions. And I really want to thank all the presenters. We have about 5 minutes or so that we can take some questions. I have gone through the chats, and I really want to thank the participants for the question. And there's one for Ms. Chawa, maybe just more specifically, can you kindly share more details on the upcoming DSI, African Development Bank, African Innovation Challenge that you mentioned? So that's something that we're taking note of, and we can share it across. I'm not sure if it's possible to also share it in the chat of this event, then colleagues can see that. And then somebody that I'm not exactly sure to which panel member to direct this. What Africa needs are strong leaders and strong institutions to drive science, technology, and innovation. What is the recipe for nurturing strong leaders and strong institutions? If any one of the panel members would like to take that, otherwise I might just point to a panel member to respond to that. So the question is in terms of leadership and what the recipe for nurturing strong leaders and strong institutions.
Nico, if I may.
Sure, Prof. Klute.
Yeah, I think my take, in having traveled extensively through Africa, is that there are strong leaders and that there are strong institutions. We should have no doubt about that. The challenge is how to get them together. And I think the initiative by AUDA on creating these centers of excellence, which are not, by the way, exclusive, and the fact that it is now a center of excellence involving the CSIR and Stellenbosch University by no means excludes anyone. It is merely the beginning to expand and to leverage the strong leadership that does exist in every country in Africa, and also the strong institutions. And this is the way we need to partner and go forward if we want to answer the question that has been proposed there. We don't have, well, obviously we will continue to create great leaders as we go into the future, but the real philosophers, the thinkers, the expertise, I have come across that in every country that I have visited in Africa, and we should leverage that and mobilize it.
Absolutely. And I can just concur, the continent is massive, and it's important that we contextualize everything that we do. So I think those regionality is also important within that context. So thank you for that contribution. I also see a question here on how can the CO in STI help to coordinate innovation systems better regionally and on a continental level. I'm not sure if one of our panel members would like to respond to that. Colleagues from Ghana and colleagues from Senegal, most welcome.
Yeah, Marita, I wanted to comment on the strong institution, if I may.
Of course.
Of course, I think we need to invest in our R&D institutions. For me, all what we have is knowledge. I mean, in fact, the continent cannot develop on the basis of our natural resources will not lead to the development. It's the kind of the brains we have, the knowledge we have, the science-based evidence we have. That is what can develop our continent. So we need to invest in our R&D institutions. We need to make it a point. I mean, for me, that is the only way to go if we are to develop as a continent. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Prof. And I think it's also within networks. The work that I do within the university is as a collective. One institution can't do something on its own. But I also found that often on a thematic level, albeit water or disaster risk or something, there are themes. It can be in agriculture. And then you find that networks, you build network and strength through these thematic networks. And that's also a very powerful mechanism. So, that also links to that. I just want to acknowledge, I think we've come to the end of our session. I just want to give enough time also to the following session, which will be chaired by my colleague, Dr. Ndumiso Tringu from the CSIR. So I want to conclude this session, and I just note there is a hand from Prof. Miyaki. Prof. Miyaki, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will take less than a minute. I think we need also a critical mass of leaders who are conscious of the fact that science has a transformative role. This is absolutely critical. If we look at the experiences of Japan and China, we can learn a lot from it. And we need leaders who are determined to make science a critical dimension in development and transformation. This is very important. So, but lead scientists to engage political leadership in a very specific manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Miyaki. And I agree wholeheartedly. If there's a critical mass of leaders, that is something that the researchers and who are leaders in their own field as well can also tap in and have the support. So thank you very much. I want to conclude the session. I just want to highlight, there are some comments. The panel members are able to see those, and we will respond to them also, during the session, but also afterwards. So I just want to conclude the session and really want to thank all my panel members, the speakers, Prof. Klute, for your contributions, Also, Ms. Chaba, thank you very much from the DSI side. Prof. Seye from Dakar in Senegal, and also the support that you've indicated. And also Dr. Montejo from the CSIR in Accra, Ghana, for your contributions and also the discussions, and also all the people that have commented. It's been a wonderful session. If I may then hand over to my colleague, Dr. Ndumiso Kingu, who is the strategic partner from, he manages the strategic partnerships at the CSIR in South Africa, to also take us into the next panel discussion, which will also last more or less 30 or 40 minutes. Ndumiso.
Thank you very much, Nico, and thank you for the panelists that have just shared with us their insights. As Nico has indicated, my name is Ndumiso Cimo. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager for the CSIR in South Africa. We've been working together with Stellenbosch University and AUDA-NEPAD on this initiative. I would like to start by acknowledging our principals, my CEO, Dr. Dlamini, the Rector and Vice Chancellor of Stellenbosch University, Professor Wim de Villiers, as well as the CEO of AUDA-NEPAD, Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki. It's also a pleasure for me to acknowledge the statement by our Minister, Dr. Blaine Nzimande, as well as the message that was shared by Mr. Martin Badia on the AUDA-NEPAD Center of Excellence in Science, Technology and Innovation. The purpose of this particular session is just to have experiences shared by our panelists on blended public-private collaborations in catalyzing accelerated or scaling up of and commercializations of innovations along Africa's development priorities. We have a wide array of speakers from different backgrounds, from the World Economic Forum, from the African Agricultural Technology Foundation, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area. And I will introduce the speakers as we go along. Just some opening remarks that we've heard earlier on about how in the continent we continue to spend less than 1% of our GDP on R&D, which is an intent that we hopefully can use this avenue to leverage more R&D spend and disseminate it in the continent. Of course, the advent of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a milestone in the trajectory of the African continent's development aspirations. And we hope that with this particular initiative that we're undertaking, we can be able to leverage that agreement to ensure that the solutions that are provided are able to be disseminated across the continent. One of the innovations that had been mentioned earlier on, we already are working or are beginning to develop ideas around the project. For example, with the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, South Africa, on possible facilitation of cross-border payments across the continent, which would be a homegrown solution as well. With those words, I would like to welcome everyone and then invite our first panelist to share the thoughts from the World Economic Forum perspective on the topic at hand. I would therefore like to welcome Mr. Philippe Bezamat Kuzmanik, the head of advanced manufacturing industry at the World Economic Forum. As I indicated, we have been, as a CSIR, doing some work with the World Economic Forum, and we've recently established a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is an affiliate of the WEF, Centers for the Fourth Industrial Revolution network globally. With that, Mr. Felipe Kuzmanik, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and delighted to be talking here about such an important topic for the region and for the full world. And with so many distinguished speakers, I have been listening the previous presentations, learning a lot, and excited as well about to see that there are multiple efforts looking after accelerating the transformation, scaling innovation in the region. And my focus, as I was saying in the introduction, is I look after the advanced manufacturing industry at the forum, basically how new technologies, pioneer technologies, how new business models and new partnerships among companies and with the public sector are changing the ability for business to drive impact. When I say impact for growth and impact for society. And in that context, we bring together many key voices and leaders around the world in order to address the challenges and uncover the opportunities that the manufacturing sector is bringing through the different transformation that we're seeing. And before, just I would like to take like a step back and share that we all know that we're living a bit of a unprecedented context, global context with COVID-19. Just in terms of numbers, a few figures, only in 2020, we saw the GDP decreasing 3.5%. In terms of earnings or revenues, we saw that the earnings have been decreased on 3.5 trillions. And only in terms of inclusion on gender diversity, 1/4 of women in specific regions are seeing their job decrease or diminish because they need to leave their jobs because of the crisis. So, and at the same time, with all this number, many organizations from the public, private, and international organizations are taking efforts in order to mitigate all disruptions. For instance, just the World Bank announced that 160 billion of incentives. So we're living in a very complex world in the time of pressures or disruptions, and at the same time, every organizations in order to try to incentivize and take actions to address the challenge that we're seeing. And that's why it's so important that we have this kind of discussion today on how we can foster conversations and dialogues between the different stakeholders. And bringing out to my area, which is advanced manufacturing, COVID-19 has reminded us the importance that manufacturing and production sectors, and as well the whole ecosystem around supply chain in the production, plays a force for the global economy. And by supporting the manufacturing sector and the production sector to become much more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive, we can also enable the whole ecosystem to become a driving force for the recovery in terms of economy and social recovery. And in our work, we have identified 4 elements that I would like to highlight. Just 4, I mean, there are many, but I would like to highlight 4 that will allow us to become a much more an engine for recovery and growth. The first one is that there's a need for activating much more new business and operating models. The second one, how we start capitalizing the power of 4th Industrial Revolution technologies. The number 3, the upskill workforce and the data-driven insights. And the final but not least, how we start fostering much more multi-stakeholder collaboration. With that framework of like 4 pillars, at the forum, we work with many organizations to bring it together, the different voices and stakeholders in order to drive a better outcome. And I think here the key question is how do we increase the distribution of advanced manufacturing technologies or pioneer technologies in general, but advanced manufacturing is my sector, while we create impact and value for business, society, and environment. And on that front, there are 2 elements connected to this. I was trying to make a connection as well with our previous discussion that I would like to highlight. The first element or the first dimension that we hear when we think about public and private collaboration is that it's needed new approaches to innovation in global value chain. why we bring this? Because I mean, we all have heard and we all have witnessed the relevance of global value chain for countries and businesses in order to for development. And however, at the same time, mega trends are disrupting and reconfiguring global value chain, new emerging technologies, sustainable imperative, geopolitical tension for sure, and COVID-19 is accelerating all these changes. And there has been three main shifts that we have seen in the supply chains that we need to take much more focus and hopefully strengthen the collaboration. On the one side, the supply chain, we also saw how relevant became during the COVID-19 start, and they seem like a root cause problem, particularly on the design element, how we design a better supply chain. The second element is the technology angle, and we saw a positive correlation between the advanced technologies with the capacity in supply chains to better react or to respond to disruption. And the final element, collaboration across industries and with the public sector. And this has gained much more importance. It has been always important, but during this past year and a half, it has gained much more relevance. And companies and countries, and we can discuss if it was needed much more for sure. But something that we have seen is that there are much more discussions, much more partnerships and collaborations among stakeholders. So the invitation now is how we can start fostering and encouraging this kind of conversation in a way that we can join and learn from, and we can draw in from the learnings from this past year and a half for the future. And the second element that I would like to highlight is the role that advanced manufacturing and advanced technologies in general are playing as a key enabler for innovation and transformation. And on that front, we are seeing that enabling in the demand side, how we can become much more agile and much more customer-centric, and we use technologies to drive learnings from the change that we're seeing at the customer level. From the supply chain side, connected to the previous point on how technologies are helping us to mitigate the disruption that we're seeing in the supply chain side. At the core of the factory or the core of the company, how we become much more, we increase speed and productivity, and we start applying automation, workforce augmentation, and new changes that allow us to be much more agile within our organization. And finally, the eco-efficiency, how we start like the imperatives that are existing right now with the ecosystem is not only a factor for growth, but also help us to provide long-term competitiveness. Just to finalize, I'm conscious of time, four words that in this context of public and private collaboration that will be needed. And the four start with A. So the first one is anticipate, how we start increasing the dialogues and the collaborations in order to start anticipating the changes that are needed. The second A is aggregate. It's impossible for one organization to solve all the issues and challenges that we're seeing. We start aggregating the different efforts. Third, accelerate. We need to start accelerating the changes. Things are happening much faster than we were expecting. So how we can start accelerating the transformation by bringing together multiple voices. And finally, amplify. The only way that we can address the different disruption and the change that we're seeing is to amplify the impact of the different initiatives. And for doing that, we need much more the public and private conversation and discussion. So anticipate, aggregate, accelerate, and amplify. With that, I wrap up and I hand over back to you, Dr. Dumiso.
Thank you very much for those words, Mr. Felipe Kuzmanek from the World Economic Forum. I think you have shared with us an A+++. The anticipate, accelerate, aggregate, and amplify message. I think that resonates quite well with what you've shared with us, particularly on the 4 key steps that you wanted to outline, which include the 4th industrial revolution and leveraging that, upskilling our workforce, collaboration across the continent. And I think if one looks also at the continent, the AUDA-NEPAD centers of excellence across the continent, some of these elements are covered. for example, the human and capital institutional development in Nairobi, Kenya, and just simply the network of collaboration across the continent of these centers of excellence. But particularly now coming back to our Center of Excellence, that it is a non-exclusive partnership, and we also hope that going forward, we can work with the institutions like the World Economic Forum in advancing the aspirations of our continent through the Center of Excellence. But thank you very much, Mr. Kuzmanik. Appreciate it. With those words, I would like to then call upon our next panelist, Dr. Emmanuel Oko-Benin, the Director for Program Development and Commercialization at the African Agricultural Technology Foundation in Nairobi, Kenya. And as I call for Dr. Oko-Benin to take the floor, I would like to also ask the next speakers to also get themselves ready. Mr. Stafford Massey, if you are present with us today, please do indicate, as well as Mr. Temba Kumano. With that, Dr. Oko-Benin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ndumiso Singo, for the introduction. It's an honor and privilege to be at this very important event. I would like to congratulate AUDA-NEPAD and the two partners, Stellenbosch University and CSIR, for organizing this. And science, technology, and innovation are key major drivers of economic development anywhere. And then again, the team regarding linking innovation and practice to accelerate Agenda 2063 is very apt. And I think in all this, based on the discussion so far, we've had people speak about ecosystem approach. In trying to steer growth and development, you must ensure that you do not degrade the system. So you must preserve the entity for you to have a long-term sustainable benefit from science, technology, and innovation. So that's quite very critical. And that means that Africa must responsibly use its technology. I will talk in three main components, looking at the background issues, the experiences, and key examples from AATF's activities in the last few years. The first thing we must understand is that public-private partnership tries to explore and maximize complementation and synergy between the public and the private sector. And that means that you have to look at issues related to human resources in terms of capacity development. You also have to look at issues related to technical factors driving such technologies. And then you also have to look at finances. Oftentimes, there are those places where private sector are willing to bring their funds, and there are those places where government has invested, and infrastructural development does help to implement things. But basically, key things are very crucial here. One is entrepreneurship, trying to move agriculture in the direction of agribusiness. Then you need to look at value chain-based approach. Most of the time, people tend to look at farmers all the time, but we need to redistribute efforts across the value chain to get benefits, and that means there are many actors and players we need to bring in, and that is where you can, really maximize efforts and ensure that you can achieve a lot much more than we currently do. And then, of course, that will mean that you bring in a lot of players, and from ideation process, because they will be involved, nothing can be commercialized. You can scale without getting their views. And so this has to be on paper right from the beginning. So that process has to take into consideration the issue of scalability as well as commercialization. And the key elements is that your approach has to be inclusive, gender-based also. Oftentimes we've done things, but we've excluded a lot of part of our population from engaging in these activities. And then you must promote homegrown solution, and the homegrown solution must be scalable. It must be scalable, and it must be commercializable for sustainability. And then, of course, in the process, we have to learn and iterate, and that's very fundamental. So decisions will have to be made, but then they have to be based on evidence. So with that information, what are our experiences at AATF? It has been spoken to earlier by somebody, and it is that whatever we do must be demand-driven, because we just had someone mention about being customer-centric. So it must be demand-driven, and then it must be powered by technologies. Things do not happen now these days without technology. We are able to communicate now because we have that technology. Otherwise, we would have been having a physical meeting, but technology is advancing. So whatever you believe in, there's technology that drives that. Then the second thing I need to mention here is regulatory systems. When AATF started driving biotechnology, not just biotechnology, we also work on non-biotechnology related issues. We discovered that we needed to have the right environment to drive those technologies, which unfortunately hadn't been in existence. But that has changed quite a lot. And the third thing is the enabling systems. Okay, you need to have enabling systems. There are all kinds of systems you can look at. Basically, it's talking more about policies. Now, things will not happen without right policies, and the public-private sector does look for policies that drive its activities. The other thing is adoption and stewardship. Now, we've brought out a lot of technologies people are not used to. You need to address how will those technologies be guided for proper use. If you don't do that, that will affect a lot of things. And of course, adoption is key. Now, if you don't have good adoption, there's nothing to commercialize and scale. So that's also a fundamental thing. The other one is a transformative structural systems. You need good input systems, market systems, distribution systems for you to be able to scale and commercialize. Those are also critical problems we have in Africa. And then we know that most of the people powering development in Africa are either smallholder farmers or SMEs, but they are lacking in finance. And so a lot of efforts have to be put there to encourage and motivate these people to be able to drive their finances. And those key points are very vital for commercialization and scalability. In terms of examples, I will give you examples. For example, we have hybrid rice. Until now, rice consumption has increased in Africa, and most of the rice we eat are imported. That's useful money that could be used in Africa. And so AATF decided to develop hybrid rice. Now, hybrid rice products are in market, but the technology does not exist in Africa. And the ownership issues, which is part of the homegrown solutions we are trying to address, wasn't there. So if anytime those producers or developers decide to seize that technology, then it's off African market. So, but we changed all that. We have now, for the first time, developed hybrid rice for the African markets. That's a good one. The other one we also did was climate smart maize through public-private partnership. And we work with Bayer to assess some technologies free. And I know some of the things people worry about is IP rights, but we make sure we got this free for Africa. And the same for PBR cowpea, which are new products. And so we have been able to strengthen seed production where you want to ensure that the technology is driven by commercialization. We've been able to assess state-of-the-art biotechnologies. We've also been able to strengthen competitive production and also drive this commercialization and scalability through good economic models. Another one is policies we are driving for the African Development Bank through the Technologies of African Agricultural Transformation. In Africa, we lead that, trying to see how we can change a lot of things in terms of implementation of policies. We do have policies, but some of them are not well driven. So we involve in that. And sometimes technologies are there, but there's no harmonization. And you don't, so regional trade is hampered. And so that is also being addressed through our work under that, which is part of the Feed Africa initiative of the African Development Bank. And then the other one is commercial linkages. All right, I mentioned digital marketing. We have to link farmers, a lot of agriculture is within the rural area, and we need to drive the rural economy. And now with digital tools, we can drive digital marketing and ensure that farmers can really find markets for their products. And without markets, you are not going to get your production to move. So those are some of the key things we do. But a lot of what we've spoken about PPP will depend on some few things, and that is what drives AATF's core values, which is about integrity, dedication, and accessibility. And if we can follow those and address some of those key points, not exhaustive by any means, but they will help to reposition Africa and draft the 2063 Agenda Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okok-Benin, for sharing those experiences with us from AATF in Nairobi, Kenya. I think you have touched on the very core of exactly what it is that we are working on here. You spoke about solutions that are demand-driven, as well as being powered by technology. And I think this platform here essentially brings together players that produce those technology-driven solutions, but in response to African member states of the African Union that are prioritized by they themselves. You have also actually inspired us with a few of the solutions that you've developed. The hybrid rice for African markets, which has not been in development or in existence before, as well as one that I particularly like, the climate smart maize. And I think those are the kinds of solutions that the continent is looking for. But previously, we've not had a platform where these solutions can be upscaled and translated into application or dissemination across the continent where it is needed. And we hope that with this partnership, this can be an indication or a way in which these solutions can be driven. But thank you very much for that again, Dr. Okok-Benin. And then I will check to see if Mr. Stafford Massey is on at this stage, let me just check. At this stage, no, I do not see any indication at this stage. So we will move to the next panelist, Mr. Themba Khumalo, who is a principal industrial advisor at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or agency, the secretariat thereof at Africa Trade House. Mr. Themba Khumalo, if you are ready, you may please take the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dr. King. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you very much.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we appreciate the invitation to participate in this very important event, which obviously signifies the importance of and the role of cooperation in the continent as we address some of the challenges as reflected earlier, including by Dr. Klute. And let me greet the leadership of the different institutions, Prof. Divilius, Dr. Mayaki, and Dr. Dlamini from the CSIR. We just had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Bala a few days ago in our quest, obviously, to discuss some of the issues that relates to the implementation of the agreement in working with many stakeholders that they have a role to the successful implementation of the agreement. So we really appreciate that, as he had indicated when he was here, that we'll be launching this center, that we're doing that today. I think one is probably fortunate because the AfCFTA is the talk of town in the continent. So we probably mostly know what is happening. But I'll probably try and reflect on where we are and how we therefore see this as an opportunity to help us successfully implement the agreement. I think one of the issues that the Secretary General of the AfCFTA has always emphasized is that we are looking at an agreement not just about issues of trade, but an instrument that we can be able to utilize to effect transformative change in the continent. So we're looking at this as an instrument that we should be able to utilize to drive industrial development. We have, as indicated, a market of about 1.27 billion Africans that this agreement secures for those who have capacity and those who will be building capacity to take advantage of, both from a trade perspective, but also at a level of producing even intermediary goods that could therefore be traded in the continent. We are so far at number 38 of ratifications out of obviously 54 signatures. And we, as colleagues, will be aware, only Eritrea has not yet signed the agreement. But this signifies, I guess, the importance of how African Union member states are looking at this. Probably one of the most significant steps that the continent has taken since decolonization, or since the fight for political freedom in the continent. So it's a really exciting times. In the agreement, you would see that Article 3 actually of the agreement is very explicit in terms of how we are expected to promote industrial development through diversification, through industrial, pursuing of regional value chains, through pursuing agriculture development and food security. So when we look, therefore, at some of these issues and what the center is expected to help the continent do or achieve, we see exciting times ahead, because as we have always maintained, that our people don't necessarily eat agreements or policies or strategies, but they want to look at how programs could be driven to then get them to where they will effectively participate in the economy of this continent. So in terms of obviously regional value chains, we currently, I would say, as a result of some work that the Secretariat has done with other partners, we are prioritizing agriculture and agro-processing. We are prioritizing pharmaceuticals, and I think colleagues will understand why pharmaceuticals, given even the current situation that we are facing in the globe. We are looking at issues around the auto value chain in the continent, working with OEMs around that. And lastly, issues around cotton, clothing, and textiles as probably key 4 areas that we believe could be able to help us drive implementation of what our colleagues are calling developmental regionalism, to help us transformatively industrialize the continent. And because even before COVID, we had seen that most of the African economies were actually growing, but not transforming. So we're hoping that we can therefore be able to utilize this opportunity to effect that kind of change that we want to see in building the Africa that we want in line with Agenda 2063. Maybe as part of obviously an update, we are entering phase 2 of the negotiations, and I think of interest to this conversation is about the negotiation on the protocol on intellectual property rights, which we believe should be able to make it possible. And I don't sometimes because there's always a debate about whether do we need or what kind of an intellectual property regime do you need to support innovations, which would obviously not stifle those type of innovations. I guess probably it's a debate for another day, but the intention here is to ensure that we can be able to, at a continental level, come up with an intellectual property regime that will make it possible for Africans to be able to innovate in dealing with the challenges that we are facing, taking advantage of the implementation of the AFCFTA. So we therefore expect innovators to play a critical role in value addition, in upgrading of regional value chains, and in creation of jobs, fighting poverty, and fighting inequality in the continent. Obviously, through what colleagues would always refer as R&D-led industrialization. So it's an opportunity for us as we were being given this mandate to coordinate the implementation of the agreement, to then partner with the like-minded institutions across the continent to ensure that we can be able to support this work. So we are taking this cooperation and collaboration with AUDA-NEPAD very serious, and we look forward to this continued partnership with all the associated partners, including obviously CSIR, my former employer, Department of Science and Innovation, also my former employer, to ensure that we can then be able to deliver on this. One of the issues that we are currently preoccupied.
Yes, Chair. In terms of the link, I just want to know if, because of we are having provinces convening their dialogues in different dates, is the link going to be the same for all provinces?
Let's see what Linda projects, and let's see what adjustments can be made. So I see Linda has projected the link there. Just speak to it, Linda.
Okay, this is the link. This is, for an example, this one I have just made on the description that it's Eastern Cape. This is just an example. I'm not saying it's in Cape, but it's scheduled for tomorrow at this time.
Yeah.
So the dialogue topic is still the same. The only difference would be here the actual province description, and then everything else is still the same. Like I have indicated, if you need to make changes to the breakout rooms, just let me know so that I can make those changes on the rooms. But the rooms are still the same as the national ones. So those are the only two changes. So the first change is the province, 1. 2 would be the breakaway rooms. But if you want to keep this the same topics, then there shouldn't be a problem. And then the link itself, to answer Deboho, the link is not the same. I've made a unique link for each province. But if you want to keep the same link for all the provinces, just let me know.
Are you able to show us what the unique link looks like?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumalo, for those words from the AFCFTA.
It looks like this.
We are encouraged by the enthusiastic response.
Okay.
So this registration link
forward
is different from
stage,
any other province. For instance, if I give you the other province, it's not the same.
I will just simply skip to
It's different.
the last but one part.
If I click on this one,
that I would like to thank
it's a different link.
their
Western Cape,
participation
yeah.
today in this session.
If you use any other province, it's a different link altogether.
And with that, if you will allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to
I see you, Mpo.
over then to the closing part of our event today.
Chairperson, siphethwe apha
Thank everyone
abanye bethu siyaphatheka. Now I'm just wondering, because
who's talking? Is it Mpo?
This is Mpo.
Oh, okay.
I was saying Chairperson siphethwe apha
Thank
and
you
siyaphatheka.
very much, Dumiso.
Manje, as it is, we are being asked to participate in the best interest of abaphathi bethu. Now, if
from all the panelists, extremely deep insights, extremely helpful contributions in shaping this journey we're all embarking on. I feel like already we've traversed the continent. We've been to the west of the continent, we've been to the east of the continent, and of course we are in the southern part of the continent. And indeed, this is what gives the identity to this center. But what I also like is deep commitment and belief that research development, science, technology, and innovation, including some of the new technological advances in digital technologies for IR, are the answer to our development objectives. What has also been incredibly encouraging is to have had science and technology find its home at the center of political agenda in Africa, as well as development agenda. It is incredibly encouraging if one, for example, goes by the last speaker, looking at an African trade, free trade agreement that has just been entered into. And again, looking at the role of science, technology, and innovation in actually making that a reality. So those of us who work in this sector, the institutions that are founding partners of the center, but also the partners that we know are going to be joining this center sooner than later. We have a lot of exciting work ahead of us. And from the CSR, we're extremely excited about this. We're very proud that we have put our hat in the ring and that our researchers is proven in the workshop that we hosted in December, that our researchers came in droves and expressed their commitment, and they've been working actively with the teams from Stellenbosch and AUDA-NEPAD in developing those projects and in shaping the business plan that now we're taking to the market. I really want to thank the dynamism of this event, as well as those participants who've been on engaging on the chat platform, as well as other social media. I understand that we've got participants who've been following this via YouTube and other platforms, and I really want to thank them. Once again, I want to thank the principals, Dr. Tulani Dlamini, the CEO of the CSR, Professor Divilius, the Vice Rector from the University of Stellenbosch, Dr. Miyaki, the CEO of AUDA-NEPAD, and also the teams that have made this event incredible, what it is today. We have an internal joke that the three parties that have been involved in this. We have these Friday mornings sessions that have been incredibly productive, and in a short period of time have led us to where we are. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. Our continent requires this intervention. COVID makes it even more important. And therefore, looking forward to further engagements and also further mobilizing more partners to join this. It needs all of us to make it happen. On that note, I hope I didn't leave anything out. If I did, please pardon me. I now hand over to Martin Balwa, who has been a true champion of where we are today. Martin, you've got the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And we can't be more energized than we are in this moment. There has been mention of leadership. I think in this group, in this initiative, we have the leadership we need. We have no excuse. Our principals have demonstrated that, and we are ready to go. And I also want to say that one of the challenges we meet and come across in this initiative is actually the difference between talking and talking nice things and implementation. We are actually very, very ready to put our boots on the ground. And this is where we want to invite you. We want to work with you to make sure that we can prove them and prove ourselves wrong, that we can actually put our feet on the ground and actually deliver not just for today, but the transformation that the continent needs. I think as a continent, there is no excuse that it can't be done. And we do know, actually, there's a lot of evidence that things are happening in the field. So let's go out, scale up, expand, and sustain that critical mass of implementation. I actually also want to acknowledge, we did mention the plus 40 innovations. Actually, behind that plus 40 innovations is close to 200 CSR, Stellenbosch University, top-class scientists that are working every day, and they are part of actually our capability to continue to deliver. We actually thank them very, very much, and obviously we are engaging them as we go forward in terms of that capability which is in the continent. And this is again where we see a lot of you participating and being part to the initiative. So lastly, just to say, as been mentioned, there is a plan. We shall share a lot of the documents in the emails and in the website. And we look forward that you can engage. I did mention at the beginning that the African Union Development Agency is not an organization sitting out there. It's you, it's part of you, and make use of it as much as you want, and we'll be there. We are actually, our very core value is being of service to you, and that's what we bring together with moving with CSR and Stellenbosch University. So take the opportunity, and we look forward to actually engaging with you that we can deliver value and change and in supporting our member states on the economic drive of the continent. Thank you very, very much, and wishing you everywhere. And thank you, Kungeka, for the facilitation, brilliant work to carry us through these 2.5 hours, nearly, yeah, just a few minutes past the time. Actually, we did very well time-wise. So thank you so much once again, including your leadership and leadership of Eugene. Actually, you mentioned the Friday morning. It actually took a lot of time of many people under the leadership of Eugene, Kungeka, in terms of CSR and Stellenbosch University to bring us where we are. So thank you very much again, and have a good day to everybody. Thank you to the principals, and a good day again. Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.